Welcome. Hi, I'm Mikki, and this is Mikkipedia, where I sit down and chat to doctors, professors, athletes, practitioners, and experts in their fields related to health, nutrition, fitness, and wellbeing. And I'm delighted that you're here.
Kia ora everyone, it's Mikki here, and you are listening to Mikkipedia. And this week on the podcast, I have the pleasure of speaking to Art Green, best known as the first New Zealand Bachelor, now health and wellbeing advocate, podcast and TV host, husband to Matilda and dad to Milo and Autumn, and basically an all-around decent human being. We discuss his businesses, Clean Paleo, Plate Up, and the lessons that they taught him about being in business. We discuss his podcast and controversy behind the Paleo Pete episode. He's very open about all of this stuff. We obviously talk about Bachelor and meeting his now wife Matilda, which cast them both in the spotlight, and what it's like being a dad and how that has really changed life. And we discuss how that's also shifted the focus about what is important for both Matilda and Art in terms of how they want to spend their time and show up in life. This is such a great, honest chat with one of New Zealand's most likeable celebrities. I was so honoured to have him on the show, so I really think that you will enjoy this. And we talk health and geek out in that as well, because of course that's something which Art is super passionate about, and obviously I appreciate that. So we will put links to where you can find Art on Instagram, and of course links to his Well and Good podcast, of which I was a guest on, and that was a great chat also. But before we crack on into that, I'd just like to remind you that the best way to support Mikkipedia is to subscribe on your favourite podcast platform and give us a 5-star rating if you love it. That would be amazing, because there are a plethora of podcasts out there, and the best way for people to be aware that Mikkipedia even exists is word of mouth and podcast platforms. So if you can do that, that would be amazing. Second best way to support us is to head to my website, sign up to the recipe portal access. Over there you get access to over 900 recipes, my weekly email, regular lives on our Facebook page, and the ability to interact directly with me via our online system, so I can best help support your nutrition needs. All right, team, please enjoy the conversation that I have with Art Green. Art Green, great to have this opportunity to chat to you on my podcast. How are you this morning?
Pretty good. I'm kind of good. I feel like I thought I was through the winter of sickness, and I got a cold. I just got a cold, and it's annoying me because, I really thought that I'd gotten through the winter and I'd had all the sicknesses that I was going to have, and I saw the light at the end of the tunnel, and now I've got another cold, and I'm a bit annoyed.
Do we put this down to having 2 infants?
Absolutely. They just bring home all sorts of bugs from their daycare, and I'm not the type of person that usually gets that sick. And this winter I've just had so many colds, and I think it's just a combination of everyone being back out, mixing around each other, and us being in lockdown last winter and stuff, and then now all the bugs are just running rampant, and the borders are back open, and so different strains of viruses are coming back to New Zealand, or coming into New Zealand, and it's just a giant mixing pot, and there's no way around it, no way to avoid it.
And you know what, Art, if you are like this sort of icon of health and wellness in New Zealand, if you are struggling with all of your health hacks, if you like, then can you imagine what the general sort of Joe Public is dealing with?
It's interesting. I've been thinking about this as well, because I thought I take my health so seriously, and I really try and do so many different things every day that to improve my health and keep it tip top, right? But I get just as sick as everyone else. And so I don't know what it is. I think with viruses and a lot of things like that, sometimes, I don't think the mechanisms at play are properly understood. And so I don't know if we really know how to really avoid them. Yeah.
Totally. And you know what? It's in my head, because I think about this a lot as well, is yes, you want to be resilient to try and prevent, you want your immune system robust enough to fight whatever it is that sort of comes at it. So potentially your level of sickness may be at a sort of reduced or a minimal level compared to, say, someone else. And so I wasn't going to jump in here, but I will actually, because what I want to chat to you about today, Art, is about you and about your background and how you've progressed to be this sort of New Zealand icon for health and wellness in the best possible way, because you are like the boy next door in all of that as well, which I think makes you, super cool. And this is one of the reasons why you are who you are. However, can I bring up the Pete Evans episode or not?
No, sure.
Yeah, so interesting, because as I was doing my research, and of course, you'll remember back in 2020, obviously, when you and Matilda had your first iteration of your podcast, there was a lot of backlash when you had Pete Evans on your podcast. And look, for what it's worth, I feel really sad that he's gone out of the public eye, because his recipes were amazing, and I loved watching him on My Kitchen Rules. Can we just have a chat about that whole sort of episode and sort of how it went down in light of, give us a bit of a debrief.
Yeah, absolutely. So we, like you said, Maddie and I, my wife and I had this podcast, had our podcast Well and Good. And we decided to interview Pete Evans. And it was like, Pete Evans has been kind of like an idol for me, because I loved everything that he said in the way of nutrition. He was the forefront of the paleo movement in Australia, and at the same time, that's a way of eating that I was discovering for myself, and I just thought it had so much merit, and I liked the way that he spoke about it quite openly, and wasn't afraid to go against what the mainstream nutritional advice was at the time, and so he got so much backlash from the Australian media, Australian public, about his nutritional views, because it was seen as being so wrong at the time.
Yeah.
But then that's all been, everything that he talked about from a nutritional point of view is now absolutely backed up 100% by pretty much all nutritionists around the world. Anyway, that's why we were really excited to get him on and have a chat, and that's what we wanted to talk about on the podcast, was nutrition. We got him on at pretty much the time when COVID was just starting to rear its head around the world, and it hadn't yet made it over to New Zealand, so we didn't really know what to expect and didn't know how serious it was. And Pete Evans came on the podcast, and he said some stuff that was, he said some stuff that was very controversial. He was talking about COVID being, he pretty much said he thought that COVID was a hoax. And
did he say it was a hoax, or did he say that the public facing sort of how we deal with it was more of a hoax? Did he actually say COVID, the flu, the virus was a hoax, or did he say that
he thought that no, you're right. So he didn't say that the virus was a hoax. He accepted that the virus was a real virus, but he thought that you're right, that the response to the virus was almost a bit of a hoax, as in it's been blown way out of proportion. We are jumping to get some vaccinations, and we're isolating, and we're doing all the stuff that he didn't believe was necessary for the level of severity of the virus. And so there was so much backlash from that, for us, for Maddie and myself, I mean, really just basically giving him a platform to speak, because I think a lot of people thought that what he was talking about was very dangerous. And Maddie and I were very naive in that we had no idea. We had no idea where the conversation was going to go. And we also had no idea about COVID or anything to do with it, because it was also new and hadn't really made itself comfortable in New Zealand. And so, yeah, it was a very strange time for us. We learnt very quickly about, it's a funny thing, because it makes you think about like who decides who's allowed to speak about what.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
It's a far bigger conversation than just the conversation topic that we were talking about. And so, yeah, I don't know. It was a weird scenario, to be honest.
Yeah. And in fact, Pete Evans was sort of, if I say, he was like 2 or 3 years ahead of where mainstream was in terms of nutrition, right? Because he was absolutely one of my introductions to or not introduction, but he sort of, his popularity increased, and what he was saying about paleo was sort of happening at the time, a couple of years after I had sort of discovered it as well. And man, how late to the party were we about, because, Mark Sisson and Lauren Cordain and Rob Wolf, I mean, that was, back over in the US, it was so much more popular. And the level of vitriol around what Pete said from the dietitians in Australia, just with regards to his paleo approach, was just makes you realise how much protection of the patch there is around nutrition and who's allowed to say what, as you said, if we're just thinking about that nutrition space. But then, of course, his whole approach sort of took a different, and almost over the years, it sort of transitioned from just nutrition to more lifestyle, more spiritual. Like, I suppose he got more and more, some would say extreme in his views on some things. And I guess he sort of had positioned himself in this way where no one's ever really going to be happy with what he had to say, probably. And it's no surprise that his opinions on the public health approach around COVID were a hoax or propaganda, or however you want to put it, because he was so, his message was metabolic health, was being healthy first and foremost, and our immune system should be able to fight this off. Now, whether or not that was in fact the case, the first, because COVID's really changed over the years, right? Since its original, the alpha COVID, which really hit hard, versus the potential mild impact that COVID might have on someone now, because it's sort of gone through its iterations. So for potentially the general person nowadays, it is actually more about metabolic health than it is about sanitizing and getting your fourth booster. But that wasn't a message. But I suppose no one knew at the time what COVID was, was really.
No, that's right. I think it was. I think it was just very abrasive as well. The way that he was positioning his messaging, and probably just a little bit insensitive to some people who, at the time there were people over in the UK who had loved ones that had died from this virus, totally. Right? And so then to say that, it's not as serious as people are saying and stuff, it's pretty hard to hear, I imagine. But I mean, it's a weird one though, isn't it? Because it I don't know, honestly, it's such a big topic, and
do things like that knock your confidence? Or how do you deal with that stuff? Because I did
at the time, it definitely probably did knock my confidence. I started thinking, like, I mean, At first, I was very kind of just like, oh, like shut up, like I can say what I want. You know, I didn't. I'm just having conversations with people, and then I think it did knock my confidence, and I started to question what my role in, like, what am I actually doing, and what is my purpose around this sort of thing. And I started to think more about, I really just want to help people, and I I also don't want drama. And, and for me, like, going through that whole drama, I couldn't be bothered with it. And so it's like a fine line, I think, between wanting to speak what may be the truth, and then also wanting to speak what I think is most helpful for everyone at the time. I think it sounds a little cryptic, but
No, I get
yeah.
it. It's that fine balance between sort of living in a way and speaking about things that you really that you do sort of believe in, but then what's going to be most helpful for the people who are actually looking to you for advice, for information, because that is, like, health and wellness icon. I mean, I keep saying that, and I don't mean to make you feel uncomfortable, but that's like, you're on Instagram daily giving, with your little personal trainers, so cute, giving advice on fitness, on things for longevity, like your whole balance video the other day, like getting people to think about their health in a way which is practical, and it is things that they can do something about. So
that's exactly right. And it's like, there is the stuff I post is certainly not everything that I do, or that is about my life. And so, I mean, for example, I currently I eat raw beef liver as a because it's so nutrient dense, and it actually just makes me feel good. But I don't post about that. And the reason I don't post about that is because I just feel like it just opens up a can of it opens me up to potentially people saying that's, you shouldn't be doing that. A lot of, like, vegans would probably have a go at me. And then people would also say, no, it's not safe because it's raw, you need to cook it, and like all sorts of stuff that I just can't be bothered with. So that's that line that I toe, that I'm sort of like, I sort of just can't be bothered talking about some stuff.
It's like what's palatable for the public, right? And so, I see you're only 34. Am I right?
That's right. Yeah, I thought I was 33. Actually, it was quite depressing. I turned 34 in May, and I was sure I was turning 33, and then and so did Maddie, my wife, and then we realised that no, I was actually a whole year ahead. So that was a good little wake up.
Yeah, and in fact, however, though, I feel like you've sort of been in that public eye for so much longer. I was surprised you were only 34. I thought, surely this guy's closer to 40. No offense, like, it's not nothing to do with how you look, but it's more about, because I feel like you've been in our public eye for so long. Was that always a goal for you, to sort of be a public figure, be well known? Like, what was 15-year-old Art doing? Was he wanting to be a celeb or what?
No, definitely not. I definitely never thought about being well known. That was never something that I considered or wanted. I think from a young age I was quite extroverted, maybe a little bit theatrical. So I do remember, like, wanting to be an actor when I was very young. But then that
Short and Street.
Well, I think I wanted to be a movie actor when I was, like, in my, like, primary school years, and then I'd do little performances with my friends, and to put on skits and do all sorts of stuff like that, which I really enjoyed. And then in high school, it moved more towards probably wanting. I think I wanted to be, maybe even like wanted to be an All Black, or wanted to be some sort of sportsman. I think part of that was because I really wanted to live the life of a sportsman, not necessarily to be the best or be well known. It was more like I want to be playing a game and to then also just be paid to practice and keep fit and get good at something. Like I thought that sounds like a cool lifestyle, and travel. So that was kind of what I thought would be quite cool. Then I went to university, studied sports science. I did that because I was really interested in the human body, and I actually had no idea what I wanted to study, but I liked PE at school, so I was like, okay, cool, that's kind of a continuation. And then I did a bunch of travel, a few random jobs, and then I fell into that. I guess my interests developed into food and nutrition and health in that way. I began a health food company with a couple of friends, and then after that was, I went on The Bachelor. I sort of fell into that really.
Yeah. Now, I do want to ask about that, because you spend a period of time personal training? Is that correct? And then come back to New Zealand, to Wellington. Am I right in that?
So I did a couple of years of personal training and gym management in the mines in Western Australia. So I was managing this gym in this mining village. It was like a maybe 1,000 person mining camp that just pops up in the middle of the red desert. So I managed that gym there for like 4 weeks in a row. We'd fly from Perth, we'd fly to this mine site, and then I'd work there for 4 weeks in a row, and then I'd have 1 week off, and I'd often travel, and then fly back and do another 4 week stint. And so I did that for almost 2 years. And then I came back. I actually came back to Auckland, sorry. Came back to Auckland, started the food business, and that's kind of where it went,
And then when did you sort of get your interest in ancestral health and paleo type approach to eating? Did that happen whilst you were working in that personal training sort of space?
Yeah, it absolutely did. So when I was working in the mines, I'd get all these people would come to me and say, what's the best diet? What should I be eating? What should I be avoiding? And at the time, like I had studied a decent amount of nutrition at university, and I was like, I actually don't know. Like, I don't know what the best diet is. I don't know what you should be eating. And so I thought, well, this is a bit weird. So I'm going to just do my own research. And I had lots of downtime in this job. Basically, I'd train people a little bit in the morning and a little bit in the evening, and I had the whole day free, where these miners would be down at the mine site getting iron ore out of the ground, and I would just be doing my own workouts and learning. Actually, I did lots of reading. So I started looking into nutrition and trying to figure out like what the current science is, and there were, like anything, there are a few different schools of thought on it. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to try out a whole bunch of different eating regimes, kind of diets for myself. And so I started looking at each of these 4 week stints that I was on the mine site as a bit of an experiment period. So,
nice.
So I'd use, because I could control my diet pretty easily. I had all my food supplied, and it was all really good food, and I could really choose how I wanted to eat. So I tried a ketogenic diet. I tried paleo. I tried vegetarian. I tried vegan. I tried raw food. That was quite hard because it wasn't very enjoyable with the food that I had on the mine site. And I tried like isogenics, which is a supplement based diet thing. And I tried that because there were so many people that were on that in the mine sites. And they really wanted to know if it was any good. So I was like, well, I can't advise you unless I'm going to try it. So I tried that. And but paleo was the one that felt the best for me, and it made the most sense for me based on the ideology behind it, which is ancestral nutrition and basically eating for our biology, the way that we've been evolved to eat. And I just never really stopped. I kept going, and I just felt really good. And then this was at a time when it wasn't very popular. And so,
who were your early influences in that?
I think Rob Wolf was one of them, based from the States.
I mentioned Mark Sisson. Did he come up in
he
your?
Did. Yeah, Mark Sisson was one of the very early guys. I'm trying to think. There was another one who I had a book of. I can't even remember it anymore.
Chris Kresser?
No, it wasn't. Was there another Rob? Someone? Anyway, most of them were based in the States, and then and so you just kind of see what they're doing, and it just made so much sense. And so then I just carried on doing it, and then that's when I came back to New Zealand, and no one was really doing anything in that space. And so the business that I started with my friends was a paleo business, just providing foods and snacks for people who wanted to eat that way as well.
I think I remember seeing you and your business partner, ex-New Zealand cricketer. Mitch at Faro one morning, and you were handing out paleo cereal.
Yeah, that was
us.
And
I'm like, well, this is delicious. And that was when, I can't recall when that would have been. I want to say 2012, but it might not have been. It might have been,
when was it?
Might have been a little bit.
Might have been after that, later. I don't know.
2014 or something
like that. Yeah, it would have been like 2014, 2015, I reckon.
Yeah. And I thought, well, that was sort of delicious. But so from there, how did you fall into The Bachelor? Yeah,
so then I basically, I had a modelling, I was on a modelling and talent agency's book, basically, back when I was back when I was at university. I did a little bit of modelling work, and by
hand modelling.
No, but the modelling that I did was hilarious, actually. So I got into it because my sister, she was like, hey, I was a student, had no money. She was like, hey, you can earn like $2,000 if you do this modelling job, because she saw an ad come up for it. She's like, you'd be good at this, and it was for modelling for a shower company, and so you had to like be in a shower. And so she's like, yeah, why don't you just like go for it, like put your name forward or whatever. And so I was like, okay, cool. So anyway, put my name forward, didn't really think much about it, and anyway I ended up getting the gig. So I went along to this place, and first of all they're like, you're going to need a G-string, a tan-coloured G-string. And I was like, okay, well, let's go find one of those. So I went to Farmers, went to a few different shops, and they didn't have guys ones. So I had to find a female tan-coloured G-string, which I found, and went along to this thing. Never done any modelling before, and I'm like thrust into this like shower scene where I'm just like pretending to be in a shower. Well, I wasn't pretending, I was in a shower, and the water was quite cold, and I was just in there for hours while they were taking photos of me. It was a very strange experience, and by the end of it, like the elastic is like wearing out on the G-string, and I'm like falling out, and it was just like, anyway. So that was my modelling, and so I then stayed on the books of this modelling agency, and then went away, went to Australia, came back, started this business, and then the opportunity came up. The TV producers who were making the show, The Bachelor, reached out to a whole bunch of agencies and stuff to see, do you have someone that fits this profile that might be good for this position on this TV show? They didn't really say much about it because they couldn't. And the agency that I was with found me, and they said, they basically just said, hey, Art, would you be interested in, being put forward for this potential show that we think is The Bachelor, but we're not sure? And I was like, yeah, cool. Go for it. I didn't really. Was
one of the first things they ask is, are you single?
Yeah, they did.
Are you still single?
Yep.
Did that ad ruin your
that totally
your romantic possibilities? Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, and so they so then I said without really thinking about it, and then I had to do some different interviews and like a 5-hour psychometric assessment to figure out if I was crazy or how crazy I was.
Yeah.
And and then they finally asked me, do you want to do it? Because we'd like for you to do it. And then like I, at that point where it was like, I had to really make a big decision. I talked about it with my business partners because I thought, sure, if I if I come across looking good, then that's great, good for the business. But if I come across looking like an absolute asshole, then it probably won't be that good. And because my business partners were quite cautious with that sort of thing, so I had to sort of we made a decision together actually, and then also talking about it with my family and stuff. But at the end of the day, the main thing I thought was like, am I ever going to regret this opportunity? Like, am I ever going to regret this if I said no to this opportunity? And I thought, I probably would. So why not just do it? So just did it. The rest is
Did
history.
they pay you? Did they pay you for that art?
Yeah, they do. Yep. So they pay you for it. So they paid me. I'm not going to say how much they paid me, but
No.
they paid me a sum, and then I think they pay you while you're doing it as well, and similarly with the contestants on the show as well. All the women on there also got paid, and they were paid for each day that they were on there.
Yeah. Did you go in thinking this is a good business opportunity, or I'm going to meet my wife?
I thought about it like both. I thought,
wow,
because at the time also I didn't have much money, so I think I thought about it like, yep, cool, I'm going to be doing something where it's justifying my time because I'm getting paid for doing it. So I'm like, okay, cool. So there's a little financial incentive. It's going to be a really cool experience that I think is going to be fun to do, and also an awesome story for my friends and my potential kids. Like one day I can be like, no, I was on TV. And then thirdly, I thought, I might actually meet someone on the show. I know it does happen. It's the chances are pretty low. I'd seen what had happened on previous. Well, I'd heard what had happened on other seasons of the show around the world and how it wasn't usually that successful. But I don't know. I just thought, it would be pretty cool if it worked out, and I just
got nothing to lose, really.
No, got nothing to lose. So, and that's kind of how I had lived my life up until then, and I still do now. Is like, just go for it, and just. I feel like a positive outlook generally just seems to result in a positive outcome, and that's how it's worked out for me.
Yeah, nice. And how early on did you know that Maddie was going to be the one that you would choose?
Pretty much day one.
Really?
Yeah.
Amazing.
It was so weird though, Mikki, because we filmed for 2 months, and we filmed every day for 2 months. And the first month was fun. It was really cool. I was really enjoying myself and making some good connections with Maddie and also a couple of the other women as well. And then the second month, it just became so tiring. It became like a job, long hours. And in that sort of environment, I don't think it's really possible to know how you really feel and to have real feelings, because it was such a stressful environment. And so for the first month, I was like, cool, I'm pretty sure I'm going to end up with Maddie. I know I like her quite a lot. In the second month, I was like, I don't like anyone. This is hard. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm getting tired. I can't be bothered. Is this even, am I going to end up, a lot of doubt came into it. Am I going to end up with someone that I don't want to be with? And I started to get worried, and I was like, oh man. And so I was really confused by the end of it.
I can imagine.
And, but luckily I chose the right woman, and I chose Maddie, and thank God I did.
Yeah. And because did you have the opportunity after The Bachelor to have some downtime and actually just you almost sort of fast forwarded your relationship, but then you sort of needed to sort of fill in a lot of the gaps.
Yeah, big time.
Post show.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so we did. We fast forwarded the relationship, and then we had to pretty much just start from the beginning. At the end of the final episode of our season, it's cool. What people see on the show is oh, these two are in love. They're going to, live happily ever after. And in America and stuff, that the Bachelor often proposes to the Bachelorette, at the very end.
Yeah.
But for us, it felt like, okay, well, now we've finished filming. I feel like now we can properly go on a real first date, because we don't know each other at all, in front of the cameras and stuff. You don't really get to know anyone very well. So we didn't really know each other at all by the time we finished filming. So we just had to start again, start from scratch. Just like start from the beginning. And in a very weird scenario, because now we were in the public eye, having to have our relationship, having to start our relationship in secrecy for a couple of months as well, just due to timelines of when the show was being released.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a strange beginning to a relationship for sure.
Yeah, but as you sort of pointed out, having have good stories to tell your grandchildren and children. And was Maddie also interested in that more holistic health approach that you were, or was she sort of learning along the way and stuff?
She wasn't as into it as I was. She was interested in health, probably from a different perspective and for different reasons. She had done a lot of like intensive exercising and I guess some like restrictive diets like previously before I met her, but that was not really from a health and holistic health point of view. It was more to do with just trying to basically look a certain way. And so I think when we got together, we both, I was still learning a whole lot about holistic health as well, and so we kind of learned a whole lot together, and realized that we shared that common interest and passion for health together, which was really cool. And so now I feel like there are a whole lot of aspects of health and well-being that she is more knowledgeable than I am on as well. So I feel like we complement each other really well.
Yeah, nice. In art, I have to confess, I don't watch TV actually.
Great. I'd say that's probably one of the best things you can do for your health.
But clearly The Bachelor opened a lot of doors for you in that space. So are you currently on any show that I could be watching right now?
No, I don't think so. No, I've done a little bit of this year, a few little shows, being a guest on different shows. There's potential that I might be doing some TV stuff later this year that'll be like filming later this year, and then it probably won't be on until next year. But still waiting to figure out if that's going to be a thing or not. But yeah.
And do you still enjoy it?
Yeah, I do. I do enjoy the industry. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, actually, mostly it's a lot of fun. Everyone has fun when they're filming. Usually, I like to joke around with the crew and just enjoy my time doing it. I think I enjoy that more so than like watching it. Like I hardly ever watch myself on TV. I'm more just I enjoy doing it at the time.
Yeah. And I imagine that it might be a nice sort of contrast because you've got a really lovely space in Matakana where it's nice and quiet, and you really do the family life thing. But then of course you've got your Auckland based work. I say Auckland, but your sort of more city based work. Does it complement each other well?
Yeah, totally. I will correct you. We're in Warkworth, which is it's sort of like the how would you describe Warkworth to Matakana? It's kind of like the cousin.
Huntley.
Yeah, Warkworth is like the cousin of Matakana. The cousin that's like doesn't dress as well, and and probably it's sort of so like the Povo cousin of Matakana. But we absolutely love it. It's just an area that it's really community based, and it's just not pretentious at all. I mean, I just walk around in bare feet and old clothes all the time, and don't get a second look. And I really like that. I find myself coming down to Auckland and like just being far more conscious about like what I'm wearing and all sorts of stuff like that. So we moved up here about 3.5 years ago, and it's just been amazing. It's just such a great environment to raise kids, and you're right, having Auckland maybe 45 minutes away is close enough for us that we can just pop down when we need to and get that like taste of the city and do bits and pieces of work. And it works really well for us.
Yeah, nice. And so, obviously, Clean Paleo was, it was quite a prominent brand for a good few years in New Zealand. Like you sort of almost forfeited a lot of sort of subsequent brands coming through, and now, for whatever reason, paleo has a bad rap now, and I feel a little bit sad about that because I feel like a lot of the principles and the food and the lifestyle stuff. I mean, it's like people are too scared to use the word paleo because then suddenly you're in a tribe and you're labeled and things like that. How do you feel about that, actually?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It does have it does have kind of like a bad rap. I mean, I don't really care. I the thing is, ever since I started meditating, like
Yeah.
4 or 5 years ago, I just care less about stuff, and it's fantastic.
Great.
But anyway, I think that people don't like to pigeonhole themselves, and I mean, I personally don't. I will say, if someone says, what sort of foods do you eat, or how do you eat, or what's your diet, I'll say I predominantly eat whole foods, and I mean, I could say like holistic nutrition or like, something like that. But at the end of the day, paleo is the one framework or diet, if you want to call it a diet, that is closest to the way I live. And so it just does become easier to say paleo, because then it's like there's a line in the sand of like what foods are included and what foods aren't included.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people want it's where like people want to know what to eat and what not to eat, right? They don't. Nuance is great if you've experimented with nutrition a lot yourself, if you know a decent enough amount about food, its effects, and your own body and how it responds to different foods, so that you can be like, cool, well, I know these foods are good for me, I know these foods are bad for me, I'm gonna like eat mostly the good foods, but I know that I can tolerate this bad food, or I might even say bad food, like I can tolerate this food that maybe not as good as the other foods, right? And so there's a lot of nuance there. Once you get a great understanding of nutrition and your own body, then you can play around with things and eat the way that really suits you best from a physical point of view and a mental point of view, because food is so psychosocial as well.
Totally.
But if you don't, then people want to know yes or no. Can I eat this? Should I avoid this? And so that's where I think a diet label can be helpful for some people. But yeah, you're right. Paleo, I don't know. I think probably Pete Evans probably had a bit to do with paleo having a bit of a bad name as well, because he was so tightly associated with Paleo Pete. And so then he's, been, ridiculed. He's a disgrace. And so then like everything about him and things he's associated with are also bad as well. So I don't know, maybe that had something to do with it too.
Yeah. I never see anything about him anymore. Like it's almost like he's vanished off the face of the earth. Is it just me and my social media that misses it, or?
No, I think it's all social media. I think he's banned off all social media.
Oh, God. Yeah. Anyway, what I will say is I agree with you, Art, in that there are, particular diets or frameworks that or people really, there's backlash against rules, if you like, around food. But for some people who really don't have an awareness of how food affects them, sometimes rules can be really helpful because it takes that decision-making burden away from them, and people have so much that they have to think about that actually if you provide them with the yes and the no sort of columns, then they're like, oh, sweet, I'm good. I do this, I don't have to do that. Actually, there's a lot of freedom in those rules because they're not constantly sort of double guessing or questioning themselves. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, a lot of people just want to be told. And you're right. I think every decision that you have to make has a little bit of stress that is associated with it. And so every decision, even like easy decisions, have a tiny bit of stress. And obviously more difficult decisions have more stress associated with them. But
yeah,
if you can minimize those decisions that you have to make, then you're going to minimize your stress.
Yeah, completely. Now, so what happened to clean paleo? Why do I no longer see it on my shelves?
Oh, Mikki, what happened to clean paleo? How long you
Am I
got?
asking? Oh God, is it like that?
No, it was pretty. It's quite sad, really, because it was such a cool company, and we're making really, really cool products that were helping a lot of people, and we'd done really well
Yeah.
because to have a very niche products that we managed to make it into the mainstream supermarkets in New Zealand. Like as a small New Zealand business, it was so cool. And then we were actually just about to go into Australian supermarkets. Like it was really cool. I think we'd achieved some really great things. But then we had some stuff that just didn't go so well for us. We were one of our products was a biltong product, so like a dried beef, kind of like jerky, a traditional South African product. We had just set up a manufacturing facility in Auckland to be able to produce large quantities of biltong so that we could supply Coles in Australia. And yeah, it was pretty exciting. And then the day before we were going to do our first production run, we had the whole facility routine cleaned, like a full clean that is pretty routine for that sort of thing. But something went wrong, and like the wrong gas was used or the wrong cleaning products or something was wrong, and the basically all of the machinery got destroyed. There was like a thin layer of rust through all the machinery, so like all the moving parts, all the mechanics, all the bits you can't even see, like they're all destroyed overnight. And so that was a big setback because we were like, okay, well, what do we do now? We can't fulfill this order to Coles, so we had to tell Coles like we can't make your product. And so overnight we're like, okay, well, they dropped us. So they were like, you can't supply us. We're going to find someone else. So we had this, we're like, oh man. And we just like spent all this money setting up this new facility, right, to supply Coles. So we were like, oh, we've invested a whole lot in that. Then we didn't get, there was a lot of trouble with insurance, people not claiming liability and all sorts of stuff. So we didn't get, there was an ongoing insurance scenario going on. And then we didn't have Coles, and we forked out all this money, and it was just big drama. And then a little while after that, one of my business partners, he just went through a bit of a personal thing that was that took him out of the business, and he was like our main guy, and all of the IP of the business, everything, all of the way that the business runs, the heart of the business was with him, and he was no longer able to work in the business, and so we just sort of had to say goodbye to the business, and yeah, it was really sad.
Yeah. Oh, Art, that was like a whole sort of succession of like super bad luck. That bloody, I can't believe that story actually.
I know. Yeah, it is pretty quite bad luck. It was it's a real shame because it was a really cool company.
Yeah, and I guess everything. I mean, it's so glib to say everything happens for a reason, and I'm certainly not saying everything happens for a reason, but your life takes different paths depending on sort of what's gone on before, right? So who knows how different things might have been for you had that not happened, but yeah, mate, had no idea. Thanks for sharing.
I reckon everything does happen for a reason, and I'm 100% that happened for a reason. I don't know what it is. Well, I'm probably living through at the moment like so many things that have resulted from that business not being a business anymore, and I don't even realize it.
And I know, obviously, you had Plate Me Up. Are there any other sort of food-related things on the horizon for you guys?
No, so we had, so it was Plate Up. So Maddie and I started Plate Up, which was like a healthy ready-made meals business. So we had that for like a couple of years. And that was pretty cool, actually. We enjoyed that. And then we exited out of that a few years ago, basically when we had our first child, our boy Milo. We just wanted to focus on him, so I mean, it wasn't a huge business by any means, but it was fun. We enjoyed it, and so we got out of that so we could focus more on our son. And and after we got out of that, I decided that I never want to have anything to do with any food businesses again. At least nothing with fresh food, because fresh food is just so difficult with short shelf lives, and it's just it's a bit of a nightmare. And I think it's very difficult in our current food system with supermarkets and stuff to be a producer. I just think that margins are so small that it can be very difficult for small players, you know. And so nothing to do with food. I'm currently working on another little project at the moment, which is more to do with like a personal fitness equipment. And so I don't want to say too much, just because it's still very early days. I'm not really too sure exactly where it's going to go, or if it's even going to be a thing. But I am just working on developing some exercise equipment, workout equipment that I really want to use personally. So I thought, you know what, why don't I just see if I can actually develop something? So yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Also, so is it going to be some sort of like Laird Hamilton XPT training facility?
No, I know what you mean. That would be cool. I mean, I'd love to do all. There's so much space, like room in this health space to do some really cool stuff. Like, and I see it happening more and more. There are like a bunch of studios doing like hot and cold therapies and all sorts of stuff, which I think is brilliant. I think it's difficult. I think it'll be very difficult here in New Zealand to do that sort of thing. I think that our population is small, and I think that we're a population that doesn't really like to spend money on our health.
I know.
You know, we don't value our health. We don't really see the value to pay money to do some, to do some things that might improve our health.
Totally. And, you know, you've been in the personal training industry before. I'm a nutritionist, and both of us have that shared passion of wanting to share information. But you're right, at some point, like, you need to do it in a way that also means that you're not running on the smell of an oily rag as well, right?
Totally.
And you know, as a runner, I know, you know, runners are another community that historically we don't like spending money. And I feel similarly of like, when I think about the people I sort of work in business with who are in the States, like it's, you know, they hand money over all the time for things, whereas we can't necessarily charge the same here for the similar service over there. Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
I wonder if that'll change. I don't know. I feel like it's just something about our culture. And I mean, to be honest, there are so many aspects of health and ways to improve your health that do cost nothing, you know? The biggest impact that you can probably have on your health, apart from like improving your sleep, would probably exercise. And I mean, you can do that for free.
Yes. Oh my God, 100% agree with you. And, you know, exercise, cold showers, making yourself uncomfortable, by way of, you know, aforementioned cold showers, but heat not as easy to do without a little bit of cash or a gym membership with a sauna or whatever.
I would like to actually investigate that a bit more. I don't know how many studies there have been done on hot baths. I don't think there's been that many. Or if there's been any at all. But I'm really interested to know if you can get any similar benefits from a sauna by just having a really hot bath.
I have heard that you can, and I'm pretty sure I've seen a review on saunas that Rhonda Patrick and a science journalist actually wrote about that. And I believe that they say that a warm bath is or can be as beneficial. But to be honest, Art, when you sit in a warm bath, it's almost like, I mean, it goes cold after a while.
I know. I was thinking about that. I reckon you're going to have to just continually put hot water into it.
Yeah,
I might do a little experiment. So, you know, I've got a little Whoop strap which can measure my heart rate, and so I have that sometimes when I'm in the sauna. And generally, my heart rate is kind of when I'm in the sauna anyway, it's a good kind of indicator of how much my body is working and how hot it's getting, because I'm having to breathe more and my heart rate is pump is increased, right? So on a 20-minute sauna at say 90 degrees, my heart rate might go from 60 or 70 beats per minute up to like 110 over the course of that time. So I might track my heart rate while in a hot bath and get that water like continuously at a certain temperature. I don't know what it will be. I'll just maybe have a go and see what it's at. Maybe take a thermometer in there and then and see what my heart rate does, and I'll report back to you.
Do that. Art, obviously 2 young kids. How's life as a dad?
It's amazing, eh? Like it's so hard and so great at the same time. It's like the most intensive, relentless job that you don't get paid for. And but it's also the most rewarding job. And it really depends on your mindset. Like I was this morning, so my 3-year-old son, he is going through a phase where he comes and jumps into bed at like anytime between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. he'll wake up from his bed and come and jump into bed with me, and like sometimes I'll go put him back into his bed, and then other times I'm like, oh God, just jump into bed. That's fine. Because Maddie, my wife, she's in the spare room with our daughter who's 1, because our daughter is not sleeping, so she'll be in bed with her, and so we're like dividing and conquering. Anyway, I'm like lying there with my son, and he's and I think it was about 4 a.m. and he's wanting to lie pretty much on me. Because that's just how he feels very comfortable. So it was like so cute and snuggly, and it's like lovely. But I'm thinking to myself, oh man, this is so annoying. I'm just like, oh man, I just wish I was asleep. And then I had to like try to turn my mindset around and just be like, actually, this is like one of the most amazing things, having this little boy who just loves me so much. And I know there'll be a time in my life when I would give anything to be back here lying in this bed, and so I just needed to really try and be grateful for that. And I think that's a lot of parenting, is trying to put yourself in a mindset where you can be grateful for the present moment, because there's so many times when you're just looking forward to being like, oh, I can't wait till they are out of nappies, or I can't wait till they're at school and I'll have more time, or I can't wait for this and that. It's like, well, I'm sure that I'm going to get further ahead in life and wish I was right back to where I am right now. So
amazing.
So it's great from a practical point of view. It's been a transition for me. Like I've always had routine in the morning and routine during the day, and now it's all out the window. I have certain things that I like to do during the day in terms of like exercise and different health things, where I would normally have a set routine of exact times when I'm going to do them, and now it all has to be completely fluid. And that's been a really cool mental shift for me, because I thought like, oh, I need routine, and I function way better when I have routine. But it's like, actually, I'm just going to get better at not having routine and just be more fluid, and it be okay. And that's kind of what's been happening. So it's been a really cool mental shift for me, figuring out how to function well without routine.
I can only imagine what that would be like, because as a routine person and a stepmom who has teenagers and like adult and teenager, like I did not have that experience of having infants sort of in my life, but I talk to many parents who really struggle to let go of that. But you do mention, of course, that you've got your sort of non-negotiables. So it might not happen at the time with which you would have previously done them. But what are these non-negotiable things that you do during the day, Art?
So, I've got so many different tools that I can pull out of my little health toolbox and use, depending on how I feel, how much time I have. But I generally like I'll need to do something every day that is going to be beneficial for my health. That's kind of how my mind works. I'm like, if I'm not maintaining or improving my health every day, then I don't feel, I don't know, I just don't feel right. I feel I'll get a bit antsy, I'm like,
Yeah.
So every day most days of the week, I will do some form of exercise. So at the moment, I'm either doing resistance training at home using resistance bands or body weight, or I am at the gym using weights, probably about an hour. And I do that at quite a high intensity in terms of minimal rest. I like to, basically because I like to try and fit as much as I can in as little time as I can. And also I like to have my heart rate elevated throughout. I feel a lot better when I do. And so I'll do that. I sometimes have an ice bath. I'll do that.
I've seen your setup. It looks amazing.
Yeah. So I've converted a freezer to an ice bath. Pretty easy to do and really effective. And that enables me to just jump in the cold water whenever I feel like it. I don't need to prepare it. It's always cold and I can jump in whenever. So I also have a sauna. So we had a sauna built in a little dungeon room under our house. So I will sauna probably 3 or 4 days a week. And that's usually straight after exercise or at the end of the day when the kids are in bed and it's a time to unwind. I'll have an ice bath usually after I have a sauna. But then I also will have a sauna. I'll have an ice bath sometimes just by itself. And when I have an ice bath just by itself, it's quite a different feeling to when I have one after a sauna. If I have a sauna and then I jump in the ice bath, and then I get out of the ice bath, I'll feel very relaxed, almost to the point of a bit spacey. So sometimes I won't want to do that if I'm like having to look after the kids, because then I'm like, well, I'm a bit too tired and spacey to, get so energized and play around with you guys. Whereas if I just have an ice bath by itself for say 2 to 3 minutes, I'll get out of there and I am like, it's like I've had 3 coffees. I'm like just buzzing. I've got so much energy. And so I often have an ice bath just by itself around about 4 p.m. I find that that's just a time where I want to have some nice energy. So I'll do that. I have been through, and then some other stuff I do. I have been through phases in my life where I've meditated quite a lot. And I'm currently in a phase where I'm not meditating quite a lot. And the reason for that is that I find with meditation is one that I do need routine for. And without routine, it just kind of goes out the window. And when I only have, say, an hour, so if I'm looking after the kids, I might have like maybe an hour to myself during the day when I can do something. And so my exercise trumps all other health modalities for me because it has the biggest bang for buck in terms of my physical and mental well-being. So meditation takes a second seat. But when I do meditate, which is probably at the moment twice a week, I would like to do it for 2 times 20 minutes a day. But at the moment it's like maybe 2 or 3 times a week. And it will be usually Vedic meditation. It's a form of meditation that I do. And sometimes I try and meditate in the sauna, but it's very difficult. Yeah. And what else do I do? So
what I will say is that you speak in the way that you think, and as you're sort of describing your thoughts and how you feel about things. You sound like a guy who has done quite a bit of meditation, and so I think that's I guess something like that is a skill that you'll always sort of have. And I imagine there'll be times in your life where you might need it more than others as well. But it sounds like you've got quite a good balance as it is right now, right?
Totally. I think you definitely you go through different phases of your life and things become more prominent when you need them. And so for me, I don't think I need meditation as much right now. I have these other modalities that I use that are very effective at helping with my mental well-being.
Yeah, totally.
And so, oh yeah.
Oh no, you go.
Oh, I don't even know what I was going to say.
Okay. Well, what I was going to ask you, just to, because I'm mindful of time, but I do want to ask you, what's your diet currently look like? Can you talk me through a typical day's food for you?
Yeah.
Because everyone loves this stuff.
Yeah. Typical day. Okay, so I will preface this by saying that up until about 6 months ago, I used to intermittent fast, and I had done for probably 5 or 6 years. And by that I mean I probably have dinner at around about 7 o'clock at night, and then I wouldn't eat again until midday the next day. I might have a black coffee or a coffee with a little bit of cream in it in the morning, but I wouldn't have any food. And the reason I did that was because I knew that it would help me maintain a low body fat, and also it actually just gave me more energy throughout the day. So I enjoyed intermittent fasting. I think it works really well for me. But I was also quite curious that I wasn't really putting on muscle, that much muscle. So in the last 6 months, I've started having breakfast, so not intermittent fasting, and also increasing my protein intake. And as a result, I have been able to put on a bit more muscle, which has been quite cool to see and just experiment with. So my typical day, I get up in the morning whenever a child will wake me up, and I have I'll have like a large glass of water. Sometimes I'll have, well, most mornings it'll be a large glass of water with some minerals in it. I like to put minerals in my water, most water that I drink even. Like I'm drinking a drink bottle right now that I've got water in, that I also put a few drops of my like concentrated mineral drops that have like a full spectrum of minerals that are found in natural water that we would drink out of a mineral spring, say, rather than the water that comes out of your tap, which is stripped of all that. So I like to replace those minerals. So anyway, big glass of water with minerals, and then I will have a coffee with long black with cream, and then at around about 9:30 or 10, whenever I'm sort of starting to feel hungry, which is usually around then, I'll make myself a protein smoothie, and that usually, well, at the moment, is some ice, half a banana, some blueberries, some frozen blueberries, a scoop of Mitchell's bone broth protein powder, which is delicious. It's a Kiwi company.
Is that your friend Mitch?
No, it's completely different. It's this guy down in Tauranga who's anyway, really cool, really nice protein powders. They taste delicious and they're really cool. So a scoop of that, and then I have 2 scoops of a natural unflavored whey protein isolate, and then I have,
good on you,
and 2 eggs, and like 2 raw eggs, probably a cup of milk, full like organic cow's milk, and 5 grams of creatine, and that is about it in there. I think. Oh, and a tablespoon of peanut butter or cashew butter.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's my breakfast, and that's that fills me up big time, and it has around about 100 grams of protein in it, which is a very sizable amount of protein, and because
that is remarkable.
Yeah, because I'm trying to achieve around about 200 grams of protein per day. That means that I can kind of just tick, half of that off the list in one go. So I'll have that. Then I don't know, for lunch, I probably would most likely eat leftovers from the previous night's dinner, whatever they may be. That would most probably be something to do with it'd probably be a protein, an animal-based protein, and some vegetables is what that will be.
Yeah.
Then for dinner, again, that'll be animal-based protein and some vegetables. And then sometimes I'll have some chocolate at the end of the day. People will say, dark chocolate's the way to go. It's the best for your health and all that sort of stuff. And I say, that's great, but I love Whittaker's Almond Gold, and it's just so delicious. And so, yeah, I'll have a bit of that. Well, sometimes I'll have a bit of that at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Who do you look to for your sort of inspiration in health and wellness?
I look to yourself. I love following you on Instagram and checking in on different things that you're talking about from a nutritional point of view. I think it's brilliant, the stuff that you're sharing. I look to, I think you mentioned Rhonda Patrick before. I think she's got some great information when it comes to heat and cold and exercise from a scientific point of view. In the past, I've really followed a guy called Ben Greenfield. He's an American who is very knowledgeable in so many aspects of health. More recently, probably in the last 6 months to a year, he's kind of gone a bit more
wayward,
Yeah, he's gone a bit more spiritual, which I think that's awesome for him. But for what I want, I'm more seeking other information, and so it's a bit hit and miss for me. And who else? I think
got to be Huberman.
Yeah, I mean, Huberman's awesome, Andrew Huberman. He really he's great himself because he knows the science of the brain and all of that stuff very well and speaks very well, and he's very concise. But his podcast is great because he actually gets on some really cool guests that share some really cool stuff too. There's a guy, I'm just trying to think what his name is. Oh, there's a guy, Jeff Cavalier. He has an account called Athlean X, and he's a really good trainer, and so I get some good little training tips from him. Those are the main ones, I think.
Nice. And alcohol, yay or nay?
For me personally, I don't have a problem with alcohol. Meaning like I don't try and avoid it. I just sort of can't be bothered. I like, at the end of the day, I'll have a red wine sometimes. But most of the time I'm like, I think I'd rather just have like a kombucha. And sometimes I'll have some beer, and sometimes I feel fine from the beer, and then other times I'll be like lying in bed and I'll be like, I like won't sleep very well, and I'll just feel a bit, I just don't feel myself, so I feel a bit funny. So I don't drink much alcohol at all.
Yeah. And favorite food, Art?
Oh, favorite food, man, that's a great question. I love homemade burgers. Yeah, love making my own burgers. That would be my favorite. Yeah.
Nice. And finally, is it a coincidence that you have a son called Milo, or are you sponsored by Nestle?
The truth comes out.
And now we know.
God.
Funny. Cute name though. Love it. Love it. And Autumn as well. Like, so gorgeous.
Yeah, they're cool little kids. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much for your time this morning, and of course for your patience with my technical challenges earlier.
Oh, no stress.
So I really love this conversation just because you're such a genuine guy who has a real passion for health and wellness, and that really speaks to me, and I love it. And I love following you on social media, and I love the little tips that you give because they are absolutely in the realm of what people can do. It's not just up there for the upper echelons of society to hand over like a wad of cash. It's things like, hey, sort your balance out when you're in the shower. Here are some really simple things that you can do, which I appreciate, and I know that other people do as well. So for anyone living under a rock who isn't familiar with how to find you, can you just share that information with us?
Sure. So my Instagram account is art_green. And I think that's pretty much, I mean, I was on Facebook, but I don't really use it. So Instagram's probably the one to go for.
Sweet. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you.
What a delight to chat to that guy, and just super down to earth and cool. So I hope you enjoyed that one as much as I did. Next week on the podcast, we do a bit of a geeky deep dive into irritable bowel syndrome and tactics we can do to help alleviate symptoms. What even is it? How do probiotics help? What kind of diet strategies are actually worth it? And I talk to one of the experts in the field, Professor Eamon Quigley. Until then, though, you can catch me over on Facebook at Mikki Williden Nutrition. But for more active sort of what I'm up to right now, go over to Instagram and follow me at Mikki Williden, Twitter at Mikki Williden, or as mentioned earlier, on my website, mikkiwilliden.com, to sign up to one of my meal plans or book a one-on-one consult with me. All right, team, you have a great week. Speak soon.